Well, this is Mr. Techbot, and I did it again. We're just gonna keep on going with it. Again, buddy, thank you for hanging in there with me. I know you had Wayne even try and call me and stuff like that. But
we're gonna send someone over to put a mirror under your nose and see if you're still alive.
Well, I had the ringer off because from the last live. So I'm like, okay, and then I was literally sitting right here, right next to there's like a little chair up here with the TV, and I was literally just watching TV. I was looking over the time again. I had a couple minutes left, and I was just sitting there. I wasn't laying down or nothing like that. Just fall. I may have to start, rethinking at least this day because I think for me this day is so long because. I started work, I went into work at 11 o'clock last night, and I've pretty much been going straight through all the way. So
sounds like a real long day for sure.
Or rethink the show altogether. I don't know. Only because it's a lot. And, maybe, I don't know. I got some things to think about, but we'll see. Anyways, guys, again, want to thank get the Bearded Barbarian here. Great friend of the show. If you guys have not checked out the Bearded Barbarian yet, all his information is in the description down below. So thank you for coming on and hanging out. In fact, and I think we need something a little bit more Christmassier. There we go.
There you go.
Since we are going to be talking about some Christmas stuff. For me, I'm a 90's kid. I grew up in the 90's, stuff like that. So I always kind of relate to that. My music, I still listen to like 90's style music. I always go back to those times. And so, it got me thinking, well, Christmas is coming up next week. What were the top toys I can remember from the 90's? I can remember some, but and I found this one list. I'm like, this could be an interesting list to go over. So let me see if I can bring this up here real quick.
Well, when you said this is what we were going to be talking about, I was thinking, I think I know the toys you'll be talking about. And then I realized those are a lot of 80's toys too. And there seems to be some sort of bleed over in my memory from 80's to 90's. And I was like, oh, that must have been an 80's toy. But then I realized certain other toys are 90's toys. Exactly. I was more of a child of the 80's than the 90's. So
well, you were late 80's into the 90's is where you were?
Correct. Yeah, it was sort of like, mid to late 80's to early 90's were the toys I remember.
Well, see, I graduated in 2000. So, I remember more of these toys, in the early 90's. And then, of course, when you get, I think some of the ones on the later list are kind of more things you go with the later 90's. But the Cush Ball.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't remember the Cush Ball? That thing was awesome. And, you didn't really know what it was or what you did with it but it was frilly. It was funny. It felt cool. And I think a lot of times we used to play hacky sack with them.
Right. I was going to say it's similar to what sort of a hacky sack as far as how it was used. I remember actually getting as a child, my parents got me a book. It was called the Cush book, and it had a Cush ball attached to it because people didn't know what it was. And they're like, well, we need to tell people what to do with this. So they actually used to sell it like that as well. So I never read the book. I just threw it around at my brother, etc. So
yeah, there's mostly it's usually thrown around at somebody else or put on like I said, we used to play hacky sack with it because it with all the frilly stuff, it would give it like these sometimes weird bounces or something like that. So it was always kind of fun. For a lot of people and stuff like that. So
in the back of the classroom, when the teacher wasn't paying attention, we would throw it back and forth. At the end of the year, the teacher basically had a whole drawer of Cushes, and she would just keep collecting them after she found out what people were doing. So,
gotcha. So that I didn't know that was like a big Christmas toy, but maybe more. I would think maybe more of a stocking stuffer.
Right.
That bottom. GAC. I only remember this because I do remember watching like Nickelodeon. Nickelodeon was big back then with the whole slime deal. And Nickelodeon is not what it was when we were kids.
Right.
They had those skit shows with the slime and stuff like that. those were always those are always entertaining to me. I mean, who didn't like slime and who didn't want to go to Orlando when they had the whole slime thing going on and want to get a chance for that? I mean, that's what all these kids were going after, and then they completely changed their whole thought process.
It's sort of interesting that a lot of these toys seem to be coming back around again. Like when the grandkids come here and all they want to do is make slime. Like make slime. There's slime everywhere around this house when they're around. And it's sort of the same thing as GAC. I mean, I think it's a different consistency, but basically it's the same thing. So
I was gonna say it's pretty much the same thing. Which is funny is I remember that as kids and I wanted that, but now as an adult, I think over time I have completely banned slime because it gets on things and it gets stuck on things and it's just it's a mess.
It'll stain stuff. I mean, people think, it's fine, but if it's a certain color, you pull it off, that color is still stuck on something. So
so I've kind of banned it to a certain extent, to be honest with you.
Good luck.
But it is what it is. But yeah, it's so weird. You come back as kids and you're like, oh man, I'm not doing that anymore.
Well, it's sort of interesting. Like, there's a lot of retro toys in the toy shops now, and I think it's as much of people our age sort of remembering and buying these toys and playing them with your own kids and sort of trying to get them back into some of those things. So I think they're a lot of them are very popular now just because of that, because people want to be big kids like you and I. So
I mean, there's even things on here that I know that's not on the list. Like I remember, like light brights. I remember, being all about light brights, but light brights today are not like light brights of our childhood.
Right.
They're nowhere near in there. So, I got to keep up with these kids right here. So, but creepy crawlies, I do remember these. There was a big thing that came out. I think these were coming out more around the time of the Easy Bake Oven, stuff like that. It was like the boy version of Easy Bake Oven. Because we weren't gonna make the cakes, we're gonna make the bugs, the spiders, the creepy crawlies out there. And as far as I remember, it was pretty much that's what it was.
Right, but it wasn't edible though. The stuff wasn't edible, was it? I don't remember that.
I don't think so.
I want creepy crawlies.
They don't make that anymore.
Oh, come on. It's fun.
But I do remember these. I don't remember them being, they weren't edible or anything of that nature. So. But it was cool to make it and toss it at, if you were a boy and toss it at your sister or something like that. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
This wasn't something I was going after, but I do remember I have an older sister and she was big on these Dear Diary things because, especially to me, this was the epitome of technology. This is like the thing. I mean, before then it was, the book with the lock on and stuff like that, and me being the younger brother, I would always find these things and just kind of grab them. And then, I really didn't care what was in them, but this was basically the early age of a tablet, if you think about it.
Right. Yeah, I didn't have any sisters. I had an older brother, so I missed a lot of like the sister toys. I wouldn't have any real knowledge of what was any of those. So it was mainly my brother, and his toys were similar to the things I wanted to take and damage. So,
you probably got a lot of hand-me-down toys as well, I would assume.
I got a lot of hand-me-down, a lot of things. I got a lot of hand-me-down clothes. I got a lot of hand-me-down toys, and then emotions. I got a lot of hand-me-down emotions from my parents. Mm-hmm. So being the youngest people think it's great, but it's not always the best.
Yeah, and we get that with our youngest sometimes. She's got a lot of hand-me-downs from my older as far as, clothes and stuff like that. But can we talk about it afterwards? But yeah, so I do remember my older sister seeing these and she's like, oh, I wanted those. But what kid back in the 90s didn't want a Super Soaker?
Right.
I mean, this is the start of it. I mean, Super Soakers today are nothing like what they are right there,
Right.
But
I remember when I was in Maine and we were getting ready to move to Virginia between my junior and senior year. My friends, that's what they bought me, sort of as a going away gift, was this mega Super Soaker. It was like it had 3 barrels on the top. You couldn't even lift it when it was full of water. You basically needed a friend to help lift it. And it leaked. It wasn't a very good one. It was leaked everywhere, and I got more wet than the other people did. I was pumping the thing, and it just squirted barely. A little bit of water came out. But it was a lot of fun at first. I mean, it worked okay at first, but they didn't hold up for very well.
Sorry, the wife came home. Yes, I did it again. So
that needs to be your theme song. Oops, I did it again.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely again got to rethink this whole start time type thing. But hey, it is what it is. And I do see we got Wayne finally joined us, and Wayne, I appreciate you trying to call me, but I had the ringer off. Huh?
Fall asleep again?
Yes, I fell asleep again.
When did you go on?
I just now. So, but hey, I appreciate it. But I think after 2 weeks in a row, we'll see about next week. At this point, I might have to rethink this whole time thing. So we'll see. Although next week, next couple weeks with being Christmas and stuff like that, I get some extra time off. So by the time Friday night would hit, I'm probably a lot more awake.
So you're off just for a Friday? I took the whole week off, so I wasn't sure.
I'm only taking that night off, so that way, I got the night of Christmas Eve, so that way, with the kids, and then New Year's Eve, so I'm there at night, for New Year's and stuff like that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see. We'll have to rethink it out a little bit. But keep on going. Now, what's funny is I do remember wanting this a lot, and I just found it. They brought it back because, of course, my daughter loves games, and we were looking at games and stuff and I was looking at the store, and I was like, Crossfire. Oh my God. I remember this game as a kid. This game was awesome. And then, of course, after maybe about 4 or 5 uses, you lost all the stupid little balls, and then the whole thing was useless.
Right. I remember my friend had one. We never had one of those.
Yeah, cool. I mean, they were cool. I mean, you're going after those things, trying to get in each one, taking the balls and, putting them, keep refilling your thing. And yeah, it was.
Well, those commercials always made it look epic. Like, this I've got to have. And then when you play it, it's pretty good, but it's certainly not as much fun as that kid in the commercials having. I can tell you that.
I think that's what hits me with this thing so much is I remember the commercial. It's one of those things that epically, I still remember the commercial as I look at this today. I'm like, oh man, that looks so much cooler than it actually was in real life, because it was. It was funny is everything nowadays with kids is so much animated and so battery operated and stuff like that, and there was no batteries involved in this thing. It was just a lot more animated, and I think that's where you see differently between toys back then and toys you have now. Micro Machines. You ever do Micro Machines?
I didn't. I never had Micro Machines. I had the regular Matchbox cars. Some of my friends had Micro Machines. My parents would never buy small things like that because they were convinced it would go missing. It would end up in the vent, or it would end up somewhere, and they were afraid that it would get damaged. And then, of course, when they saw Home Alone and everyone tripping and falling all over those Micro Machines, that was not going to happen. So.
Well, see, I remember I did have Micro Machines, and I remember, it was one of my favorite things. I remember one Christmas I got a Micro Machines with it was an aircraft carrier.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's cool.
It had like little Micro Machine planes and stuff like that. It had like a little launch thing. But I do remember them being big. I mean, I remember at the time, I think I was also doing things like Hot Wheels and stuff, and you had, to have containers even like this was not uncommon. It was not a common thing to have, container full of cars. It was just, you could fit a lot more because they were, core size. But yes, you were right. The same thing always happened. They always got lost.
Right.
I think if you think about it, I think it was a lot easier to keep, know where your Hot Wheels were than where your Micro Machines were.
Sure. I mean, they were probably double the size of a Micro Machine or more.
They were about maybe 2.5 times the size of it.
Yeah.
But they were
Micro
cool.
Machines were cool, but you couldn't see a lot of detail. That's the thing about same thing for certain types like minis as opposed to pops and stuff like that. The bigger they are, I enjoy the sort of those because you can see a little bit more detail on it. So,
and maybe that's why Hot Wheels is still around today and Micro Machines are gone.
Right.
So
sort of a niche toy.
Yeah. It's definitely a 90's thing. I think I've brought up the word Micro Machines before. My kids are like, huh? Moon shoes. Do you remember these things?
No. I do not. I remember seeing some kids every now and then would have some, but it was more pogo sticks. People on
Oh,
pogo
yeah.
sticks or those pogo balls. I remember
Mhm.
those pogo balls. I don't know if that was a '90s thing or what, but I don't remember the shoes. I really don't. Did you have some of these?
I didn't have any, no, but I do remember them because I think they were on maybe Nickelodeon or something at one time. And, I do remember going, man, those look good. But what's stupid about them was, I don't think I've ever worn them, but I think all I remember is, man, you look funny. The people that had them, you looked funny trying to run in those things. We're even walking those things. So it was really like, it was the most pointless item I think of the '90s. But there were so many kids that wanted these stupid things. They didn't last. I'm sure they ended up in the trash more than anything. Chris,
Well, the kids that like sometimes certain toys like this would end up in like school in the schoolyard and stuff like that. And all the other kids were just so mean spirited. All they wanted to do was knock you down or trip you on the thing. Like I had a skateboard and I'd just skate around. I was terrible at it. I fell down every time I was on the darn thing. But all the other kids would just, when they see me skating, they just kind of like jump in front of you or put their foot out so that you trip and fall.
Now, did you have one of those like? I remember back in the '90s. So back then, you only had the skateboards that are out nowadays were the skateboards we had. You either had the big wooden one with the fin in the back and the front was straight, or you had the real. I guess they called them more California boards, where they were the long. They were skinny on both ends, and they came in. They were more plastic than they were wood or something like that. And I had those ones, and those things were tough.
Yeah, I had more of the. They had ones that were real wide and stuff like that, and the wheels weren't very good, and you couldn't really, like I said, it didn't help you for sure when you were on them. So there were a lot of opportunities to fall, but I didn't need any help. I felt plenty on my own. So
here's it. Ken, so we got Ken in here from Japan. Thank you, buddy, for joining us. He says, "I don't remember. I'm too old. You don't remember again. You are only as old as you think you are."
Right. Which
I think I'm very old sometimes.
Well, you fell asleep sitting up. That tells you how old you are.
You feel like remember when you were young and you had your grandparent or something like that, and they would literally sit up in their seat, and you're like, "Are they asleep? Are they asleep? Not sure." I've gotten to that point now.
Mm-hmm. My dad told me a story. He used to go to the nursing homes, and he's a minister, and he would go there and talk to the things. And one time, he's getting old. He sat down in a chair and he sort of fell asleep. And one of the orderlies came over to him and said, "Well, let's get you to the." They were trying to shuffle him off to one of the rooms. They thought he was one of the. I said, "Well, you're getting too old to go to the nursing home to do that when they got to shuffle you off to the back room." So
I agree with that. Chris says age is just a number. Yeah, I agree. But yes, you start to get to the point where you feel old and stuff like that. Christina, what's going on? Thank you for coming back in. Sorry I was late again this week. We're going to have to figure this out for future weeks. But these, I don't really remember these because Doodle Bears, because to be honest with you, to a certain extent, all stuffed animals became Doodle Bears, I think, at some point. Sure. I mean, you had markers, you had bears, and you just started drawing on things. So this one,
I'm not dry erase it. You could wipe it off. Is that what it is? Or?
I think so. I think this was like a particular marker you could put on there. You could try to wipe it off and redo it and stuff like that. I don't know. I remember, being the younger brother, my sister would have some stuffed animals. Of course, me being, just me, I guess, to a certain extent. You'd find markers and draw all over stuffed animals and stuff like that. I probably wasn't the greatest little brother in the world, but I kind of we lived through it.
Well, me and my brother used to share a room when I was much younger, and that lasted for a few years. And at some point, my dad's like, "Look, we need to move you all out of there," because all we did was fight, and we try to pull each other's toys apart or hide each other's toys or just instigate each other. So yeah, understood.
How many there were you guys?
It's just me and my brother. It was just me and my brother, and we lived in a variety of different places. We lived in Newfoundland and Canada for a while, and it was sort of strange. Me and my brother were sharing a bedroom, and there was an empty bedroom down the hall that was what they call the bishop's room. You had to leave a room in your house if you were a priest or the bishop. If he ever showed up, he showed up like once in 3 years, and we had to leave a room empty for him. So my dad had to write to the bishop and say, "Look, I have to move one of my sons in there because they're going to kill each other." So
brotherly love, man.
Yeah.
Everybody remembers these stupid things,
Cabbage Patch, yeah.
but they weren't back then. There were, I remember it was one of those. This was literally like that thing before the Tucumyamos and stuff like that. That
Right.
Parents would go running, and you couldn't find these on the shelf anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. This is probably the first toy that I can remember that's like that, where it was like at Christmas, it was a mad rush for this particular toy. People were actually fighting over these things.
Yeah, people were fighting over them. I remember I had one, and I don't remember if I got it for a birthday or Christmas or something like that. But what's funny is, you look at these, of course, with my phobias of things nowadays, especially with dolls and stuff like that. I remember having one and stuff like that, went through it, but you look at these nowadays and you're like, those things are butt ass ugly.
They definitely were.
Why the hell did anyone go after and then of course I think what the greatest invention of was the Garbage Pail Kids, which was 100% making fun of these things. But the Garbage Pail Kids actually got its own movie. Right. On top of it. Although I don't recommend anyone ever going and watching that Garbage Pail movie because it was horrible. It was completely horrible. But it was, that was the best 90s graphics we were ever going to get. And
I wanted a Cabbage Patch Kid, and my parents didn't buy me a lot of toys. We weren't poor, but we didn't have a lot of money. Yeah. So my grandmother said, "I'll make you one. What did you want?" And I told her, well, she's like, "What do you like?" So she actually made me one, a Mr. T, because Mr. T was my favorite show. The A-Team was one of my favorite shows as a child. And so she made me a Mr. T one where it had the little mohawk on it. It was very cool. It didn't have a hard head; it was a soft head. Yeah. It was very, very cool. That was the only thing I had that was close to a Cabbage Patch. But I had that for the longest time, and she put like a nylon over its face. And I'm convinced that she used the used nylon, which I didn't think was appropriate. But so I didn't hold them too close. I held them back from my.
It probably still looked a lot cooler than these things did.
It definitely did. I wish I still had it, but I don't have it anymore.
Now I remember these big time because I was a huge Ninja Turtle fan. From the moment they came out on TV, I was a kid because I was always that kid. I remember, 6, 7 years old, I was always watching He-Man and G.I. Joe and stuff like that. And then, you get used to that and you're like, cool. And then along comes Ninja Turtles.
Right.
And that flipped everything upside down. It was like, for He-Man who at that point. And it was all about Ninja Turtles and stuff like that. I was all over that. I remember even Ninja Turtles, as far as they used to have like these little stage setups in malls. And I remember my mom taking me to some of these things, but it was always a madhouse. You'd be surprised how many. I don't think Ninja Turtles can still draw that crowd like they used to, but God, it was crazy. But that was such the thing was the Ninja Turtles.
Yeah, I never had any Ninja. I used to watch the cartoon, of course, but I never had any of the toys. I think I was getting a little older at that particular point. So I do remember He-Man. I didn't have any of those. I had maybe 1 or 2 of those, but I have too many of those either. I was more into like those wrestling figures from the 80s that were sort of.
Yeah, I think well, I guess the concept for Ninja Turtles came out in '84. It said, but really, I think I remember it more exploding around early '90s.
Right.
Early '90s, between early to mid '90s was I think.
Well, I think that's when that movie came out, right? Was the early '90s? I think that made them really popular.
Well, no, I was collecting them before the movie even came out. It was when the movie came out. It was just like, okay, we're already huge Ninja Turtle fans. We have to go watch this. And I think even still to this day, those early Ninja Turtle movies. I mean, again, you're talking going back to '80s technology of where things were. I mean, wasn't like those newer Ninja Turtle ones they came out with, which was mostly CG. This was literally a dude in a turtle, complete outfit and stuff like that. And I think they did great with them back in the day. I've gone back and seen them since, but I mean, it was still cool to me.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back and if you look at older movies anyway, and you sort of really nitpick, even watching like the early Star Wars movie, you want to nitpick all that stuff. That's fine, but I mean, you go back for the story. The story was so much better on some of those movies than they sort of rely on the CGI and all the other stuff that goes on with some of the movies now. So I still enjoy watching them. But again, they can ruin things. Your memory remembers things maybe much differently than what you would see it now. Just same thing like video games. My wife was actually talking about, hey, maybe we should get one of those Ataris, those old Ataris that has all the games built into it. I was like, that would be really cool. But I'm sort of thinking, if I play it, I'm probably going to think this really sucked. I mean, were we really interested in these kind of games back then? Of course, that's all you had. So I mean, I used to spend a lot of time with those games. So.
I know exactly what you're talking about because I did the same thing. I ended up coming across one of those Sega Genesis ones.
Right.
And I was like, cool, man, this thing's awesome. The control is exactly the way I remember. Mm-hmm. And I remember plugging it in. And I was like, oh, man, I saw Road Rash on there. I was a huge Road Rash fan. Mm-hmm. As a kid, man. I used to run through that. And I put it on, and I was like, what the hell? This can't be the same thing. But it is. Right. And you're like, wow, this is what we were. This was like the best technology. We're like, this is awesome. You kick dudes off the bike, and it's slow. It drags. It's so pixelated. It's like, oh my god, the way now I can't look at Road Rash the same anymore.
Right. There's I don't know if you have Netflix or not, but there's a show on Netflix that I started watching that it's about gaming and stuff like that, and it kind of goes through the history of gaming and how Sega Genesis sort of beat out Nintendo. I just thought it was really interesting because I didn't really remember then. I just remember wanting a game system and wanting like a Genesis, wanting a Nintendo, but it was sort of interesting how they developed these things and how they marketed them versus how people bought them, etc. So I just thought that was really cool. So
I'll definitely have to look that up and check that out. But yeah, it was right up there. And I know some of that is actually we're gonna be reminded of some of that down here. But again, you being all boys, you probably weren't big, didn't know much about these. My sister and Marin have some, but she was never big. But what's crazy about these is it wasn't up until maybe a year or two ago that I didn't even know what a brony was.
Yeah.
And then I figured it out. I'm like, wait, what? A what? And I'm like, really? That I don't know. I was like, I can't do that. And I've seen that people actually have huge conventions with these things.
Right.
And I'm like, what? Now being that I've got two girls, I have My Little Ponies all over the place.
Sure.
But yeah, I'm like, no. I'm sorry, I can't do the brony thing.
Yeah, not for me. I mean, I'm not sure. It seems like there are probably some people that legitimately like them and it's great and everything, but it seems like there's a bit of a creepy element on the sides. Of course, you have that in all collectible groups. There's sort of a weird element to it on the fringes of the collectible group. It seems like that's the case here for people that are bronies, that they're making something that I don't see it.
Maybe people that are bronies had, younger siblings or something like that were big into these, and it's still something that they remember from their childhood. Is the only way I could think of. Like I said, my sister, by the time these were becoming popular, my sister was going to come a little bit older, so she kind of just passed all this. Although she's still older than me, and now she's going after collecting these. She can relate to my kids a lot more with these things than I can. It's weird how things come backwards. That leads into the Easy Bake Oven. I don't think we had these, but I remember my sister wanting one of these badly. And what's funny is I think they only made like a biscuit size.
It was a light bulb. You're cooking like food with a light bulb.
Oh yeah,
and you can't really cook anything, and people were too impatient. Usually, people would put something in there for like 5 seconds, and let's try it now, and it was just basically goopy mess, stuff like that. And of course, it'd been around for because I think the original toy was what, a '70s toy, something like that. So maybe the '60s. I don't even know how far back, and they just kept updating it and changing it as it went along. I never had an Easy Bake Oven. I just felt like if I wanted to cook something, I'd stick it in the oven. Although it's probably not good for children to be doing that. So.
Probably not. And we'll see, because we just got my daughter one for Christmas this year. So we'll see how that goes. I'm assuming technology has moved on from the standard, 60-watt light bulb that they used to use back in the day. But I don't know. We'll see. I see.
Well, I think they've made it safer too. There's like a slot you put in on the side, so you can't put your, you can't do certain things you used to be able to do. I don't know. So.
Stare in there and try. But see, my creativeness is I'm like, I want to take this thing apart. I want to see how it works. But I gotta let the kids kind of do their thing for a little while on it first.
Well, the thing about taking things apart is great. Putting them back together, that's a different story. Usually there's extra parts whenever I did that.
There always seem to be extra pieces.
Always extra pieces, right? Those aren't necessary. My dad would like, those are extra in case the other ones break and then we can fix it. Exactly. I don't think so. I don't think they give you those.
I don't know where those pieces came from, but there was always extra pieces. You couldn't pass it. Rollerblades. Do you remember the rollerblade craze?
I remember them. I'm so uncoordinated that it was just pure danger for me. Just like on the skateboard. I couldn't even get on regular roller skates. I was so uncoordinated for them. But I definitely remember them. They were very, very popular, for sure.
I remember them big because, like you said, I think I've said it before, even on this show, is, I remember, as a kid, the cool thing, like we used to take, we had at this community center, and they used to take field trips out to the roller skating rink. We'd be out there all the time, but back then it was always the four wheels, two in the front, two in the back, and you got used to that. And then rollerblades came out, and everybody wanted to have rollerblades because it looked cooler. I guess it was mainly like more of like a ice skating type of look. Right. I don't know, but really they didn't do anything different than a normal skate did.
Well, I think maybe you can do certain tricks maybe you couldn't do with regular roller skates. But if you did more coordinated with regular roller skates, you couldn't do anything other than hurt yourself. So
yeah,
when we lived in Maine for most of my childhood, ice skating was huge there. I mean, everyone ice skated. So I remember going to a field trip with my school class, and they got everyone ice skates, rented them, and got on there. And I could just when I stepped on them, my ankles went out like this, and I was like literally on my ankles. Like, how do you even stand up on these things? I just couldn't. I couldn't make it happen.
Yeah, I never had an issue with rollerblades. I just kind of naturally grabbed them and gravitated towards them and stuff like that. And I think later on, if I remember, before I left Massachusetts, I remember I did have rollerblades, and I used to have this big dog. He was a Japanese Akita, and I would literally take my rollerblades and I would basically just sit behind him and just like, okay, let's go. We're gonna go for a walk, but really, he's just pulling me around.
I always worried about stopping. Even if I could, like on the four-wheeler, I could get on them and move around. I just didn't know how to stop. People were like, oh, you need to put your toe down. It's like if I put my toe down, I feel like I'll fall over. So I would just let the wall stop me. Just kind of roll until whatever was in front of me or the wall would get in my way to stop me. So,
but I don't think that theory of stopping was anything new, because that just happened a lot of times anyways. That's what I think probably most of the people did until they all of a sudden started realizing, oh, okay, I can just tap it down here and it slows it down a little bit. But yeah, I did the same thing. I loved roller skating, but yeah, the wall was usually my main stopping point.
I mainly enjoyed going to watch other people, and then they do this thing, crack the whip. Do you ever play where they put the people at the end and just spin them around? The person at the end is just flying, and they just let the person loose and they go crashing into somebody. That was the joy. That was the joy of it.
Yeah, they were a blast. I do remember them. Furbies.
Yeah, I was actually talking about this with my wife, and she had, for her children, that's what, one year she said she was just happened to be lucky enough to get one, because it literally was fistfights for people getting Furbies.
This was the craze in the 90s, and then I believe they just came back, a couple years ago. Same thing though. It's like, what, we can't learn from our mistakes here. Furbies, yeah, I never had one. I think I missed the age where these things were even cool by any means, but yeah, they were weird though.
Very weird.
They didn't really do much though. That's one thing I never quite understood about a Furby. I know they had this little sensor right here on the front that was supposedly sensed you or something. I don't know. I never got them. To me, the whole point of a talking doll that followed you around or something weird like that. I was
wasn't this the first one of those dolls that they said would learn or something like that? It's supposed to learn certain behaviors and things. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe it's a was a later one. But I thought that's what it was.
You know, and you're probably very well right. I think it was back then, because I think the only thing before that you ever saw like a robotic type thing was like the Teddy Ruxpin.
Right.
You know, but that only ran off of tapes.
Right. That was you could pretend like it was your friend and everything, but it was just going to run off the tape. Where supposedly this Furby, I think, is supposed to learn certain behaviors or something like that. So I don't know.
I never got into them. I always thought they were kind of creepy, and I was like, I'm passing by this. But I feel bad for any parents back then that was trying to get these.
Or they were paying like hundreds and hundreds of dollars for this thing, and then of course, like 4 or 5 months after Christmas, you could just get them wherever you needed to get them. Christmas time, people had to have them. So
had to have them. Lisa Frank, do you remember seeing stuff like this all over the place?
No,
I remember it on not necessarily Christmas. Sorry, I got something in my throat. I remember it not necessarily during Christmas, but I remember Lisa Frank a lot of times when you were going back to school. You remember Trapper Keepers?
Oh yeah, I remember Trapper Keeper, absolutely.
Back in the day, I think I said Trapper Keeper to my kids one time. They're like, "What are you talking about, Dad?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, you guys have no idea." But Trapper Keepers, and I remember there would be the cool ones that were always there were the Lisa Frank ones, because they always had these bright colors and different things. And I'm sorry, back in the 90's, I don't think I realized it until I got older, but 90's were all about bright colors.
They were. They really were.
I don't know. Do you think the 80's were that? But no, it was the 90's was more about the neon and the bright colors and the colors that didn't necessarily think you would go together, but we made them go together.
People were making a statement, I suppose.
I guess. I don't know. We were just kind of going about it, but I remember a lot of the neon. Was a thing for the 90's. But yeah, I do remember these more. I remember these, like I said, more during school time. On just Trapper Keepers, but I don't know what the rest of the items they made on these. But
yeah, I mentioned Trapper Keeper to one of the grandkids and one of my nieces one time, and they looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Basically, my Trapper Keeper was my life. People don't realize I had all my documents inside my Trapper Keeper. If it went missing, I was out. I had everything was in there. So.
And then back then, and I don't think they have them anymore, but back then you'd have your Trapper Keeper, and then you also had those folders that were within there that you kept everything in. And yeah, I remember I had all kinds of stuff. And then I think the last Trapper Keeper I had, I lost it somewhere that held all my Pogs.
Oh, dear.
And Pogs aren't on this list, but I was a big Pog person. I had all the Pogs, stuff like that. But I had a particular Trapper Keeper that had those, and they got lost at some point. But I was like, man, you kids nowadays can't even have Trapper Keepers. Those things were awesome.
They were. Well, that was, like I said, it was very cool. People had different ones and sort of express your personality a bit. They didn't have as many back in the 80's as they did in the 90's, but I remember having my Trapper Keeper. And of course, they weren't nearly as sturdy as you'd hope they would be. After about a couple of weeks, they were starting to peel apart and fall apart.
That plastic in the lining was always starting to detach. Yeah. Trolls. These are the trolls before we actually had the trolls that our children know of. These were huge.
They're weird looking compared to the trolls that they have now. These are very weird.
Oh yeah, there's only I think one resemblance from the Trolls movies that had this type of troll, and it was in the very beginning of the movie. And that was the only time you ever saw this resemblance of it. But man, these things were big. I mean, I remember they were so huge that. I had a couple of them myself, and once you got them, you're like, okay, what do I do with it? But you had to have them.
I never had like the big trolls. I had like these little trolls that would go on the end of your pencils.
Oh yeah,
and I'd just go like this. I'd mess up his hair and go like this, and then the hair would like go all over the place.
Well, those ones are probably, to be honest with you, I think those ones are almost the most practical because at least it was on your pencil. You're at school. You're kind of getting bored. You're like, let me just, play around with this thing and see what happens. And
I used to sit in front of this girl in my class, and she'd be sitting there, and I had the little furry thing, and I'd do this to tickle her ear, and she'd be like, thinking there was like a fly there constantly. The whole class period, I just kept bothering her all day long.
But yeah, these were a huge craze for a while, and I think it's still another thing in there that I'm just like, why? look back and go, why? It still doesn't make any sense. But
Well, I think there was Trolls back, like I said, in the 70s too. I think there was like a version of that was there, and they came back, and some of these certain toys seem to go away and come back in different forms. And like I said, I think that the original Trolls were like 60s or 70s or something like that. So I don't know. But yeah, I never really understood.
My kids love them now.
Mhm.
Now these I don't remember. Brain Quest. I was looking through this list. I'm like, Brain Quest. This looks like one of those items that it's almost like if you got this as a Christmas gift, you're like, what the hell?
It seems like it's like getting socks for Christmas. It's just like I'm learning now for Christmas.
Now I gotta learn on my vacation time. What the hell?
Sucks. I don't remember these. I tried not to use my brain around Christmas.
As a kid, that was almost as bad as getting socks.
Exactly.
So yeah, this one I wasn't sure about, but this was the best technology of the 90s. Did you have a Tamagotchi?
That I think though there are different kinds. The one at the very bottom, there's like smaller ones.
Yeah, I remember.
And you ask it questions? Is that the one you ask questions, or is this something that's different that you had to keep alive?
You had to keep it alive.
Okay, then I didn't have one of those. I had some 20 questions or 20Q or something.
I do remember. I know what you're talking about. Yeah, these are different. These are the little dot animated thing that would hatch, and you'd have to keep it alive, and it would make noises. And oh my God, these stupid things.
It seems like a lot of work. I mean, just like I'm buying something now. I have a job. I bought something to keep alive. I can barely keep myself alive.
You know what this basically was is you remember even going back even earlier, and they had these things where you had to keep an egg from cracking or something like that. It was basically the same idea, except for something actually cracked, and then you had to keep it alive, and you had to feed it, and you had to, this is the best technology we could have. It was just a screen, and it was kind of like a bunch of dots connecting into each other to make it look like something. But they were huge. Everybody had one. And maybe this is before cell phones, so it was something that people had to have to kind of just keep themselves occupied. Nowadays we got cell phones, we got apps, we got games on our phones, and that's what we used to keep ourselves occupied. But this was it. This is what everybody had. And aside from, they used to have these little handheld games, same technology, but it was just like a bouncing guy that would bounce from spot to spot. But that was the technology we had. That was the top of the line 90s technology. And but yeah, I think that's where the fad on them rolled off. I mean, I'm assuming these came from Japan, and they were like a big Japan thing, and we just kind of adapted them. And then after a while, when people were like, after you started killing the stupid thing, and you're like, God damn, there's a lot of damn work.
Could you bring it back to life after you killed it, or it was just done? You had to throw it in the garbage.
You had to start all over again from the beginning. And I think that's where it kind of became where it's like, this is too much work. Forget this thing. And then I think that's why it slowly faded out of. But I remember, I'm seeing people with these things all the time. Kids getting yelled at in school to put the damn thing away or something like that. And you're like, God damn, I just got to feed the damn thing. Hold on. But
I remember when you were talking about carrying an egg around. I remember in our health class, and it's going to make me feel very old here, is they made everyone carry a 5-pound bag of flour around. And for an entire week, you had to carry a 5-pound bag of flour. And so you're carrying this thing around to all your classes. It had to be on the bus with you. People left it behind in the bus and all these things. Well, what the thing was, around school, people saw people with flour. Their plan was to kill the baby, is to try to find a way to stab it, like stab the bottom, like when you're not paying attention, stab them. All of a sudden, there's a trail of flour all around the school and just making a huge mess. And because one person just said, I'm going to duct tape the whole thing. No, they won't let you do that. Be very careful. And every baby that came back was like half full, and the janitor at the school's all pissed off because there's flour everywhere. It was crazy. But yeah, that was something, I tell you. That's how we learn to take care of a baby, by a bag of flour.
Yeah. Try to explain that to kids nowadays. They're like,
right.
Huh? But these were Talk Boy. Talk Boy came out after Home Alone 2. What's funny is nobody. I mean, everyone wanted because it was in Home Alone 2. Home Alone 1 was such a huge hit. Home Alone 2 came out. He used this throughout the movie. I never had one. Of course, I wanted one, just like everybody else. And it was just, hey, we got Wayne's wife on. But I don't think anyone ever really used it. To be honest with you, it was basically just an early recorder. I mean, that's all it was.
Right. And there were a lot of knockoffs that came out around it because I remember getting one that was sort of like a knockoff version. It wasn't as cool looking, but it basically did, it's a voice distorter and recorded things is really all that it did. Didn't do a very good job.
You could definitely, that was the only difference is you could speed it up, make it talk a little faster. You could slow it down, make it slow, but It was basically just a recorder. And it was funny because, I mean, I think it was made so cool inside Home Alone that once you got it, you're really like, okay, what do I do?
You kind of need Macaulay Culkin to make it cool because I wasn't creative enough to make it cool. So
that was my thing. I just wasn't creative enough to go. Then you got, like I said, you had that awkward moment. You're like, okay, what do I do with this thing?
Like I said, these looked. I mean, in the '80s, Walkmans were really popular. It's basically kind of like a Walkman that was able to do a few other things. So they knocked it off a bunch of times. So.
Yeah, Wayne and Wayne's wife. I appreciate you guys hanging in here with me. Again, sorry, I know it's late, but it is what it is.
What have they got to do? What has Wayne and Wayne's wife got to do? I mean, they probably sleep in. You know what I'm saying? Wake up at the crack of noon or something like that. So,
I think she definitely does more than he does.
Wow, that's for sure. That's not saying much. You know what I mean? That's not saying much.
Talking to the fan has the same effect. Yes, I don't tell me any, especially 90s kid. That was. I think even kids nowadays, once you figure out. I remember spending time. I get so bored sometimes. You're standing in front of the time and you're doing the whole talking through the fan. Luke, I am your father. Sound. I mean, everybody did that. I mean, or maybe I'm just weird, but yeah, I was all about that.
Well, you are weird, but everyone did do that.
Hey, that's all right. I'm okay with being weird. I was known as that kid when I was growing up. This is probably later 90s, but I remember these things. Everybody wanted, of course, tapes have gone out, CDs have come in. Everyone's like, great, I can just, instead of trying to fast forward, if I'm getting the song, I can just go right to it. That was just the way it was. But God, these things were so touchy.
Oh yeah.
You're thinking, I got a Discman. I can go wander around and do what I need to. No, you couldn't put it sideways because then you start skipping it.
Right.
You can move it. You can move it too fast, and then you start skipping it, and it's like, damn, these things, as cool as they are, they suck.
I had actually a pretty cool one when I was in high school. They had one that was like a Sony one, had like a little bit of a shock absorber in it, had two little Velcro sticks. I put them on my car. And I had like a tape deck, tape that you could put in the tape deck, and you could play it through your system. I thought it was cool. There's all these wires hanging down. You did that in your car now, people would think you were a loser or something like that. But I thought it was cool, man. It worked pretty good. You hit a bump, it's just kind of skip and scratch.
That tape with the cord on the end, and you stuck it. Right. Like, man, this thing's awesome. And you got that stuff all. And then that was the way. And then of course, then you had your binder full of CDs. Then and that's the thing is, it's not like we nowadays you could just go and, hey, I want this certain song. No, you had to go, and then on top of it, then you got into the early 2000s where I got my first CD burner, and I'm like, oh man, this brings it now. But now you're making your own playlists and stuff like that. I really say there's sometimes memes of these things that come out. Or like the big CD binders that everyone had. Mm-hmm. And again, Wayne's wife, the trapper keeper full of CDs. But struggle was real back then, man.
It really was. I had one of those ones that went on your visor and it flipped down. And I remember one time I'm driving down the road, I opened it up to get a CD, and all of a sudden it was one of those multiple, it flipped down in front of me. It's like completely covering my face. I'm driving the car, almost killed myself trying to get a CD out of the CD thing. But yeah, I used to have like all these CDs.
Then again, back then, you know, especially if you found a CD that you could listen all the way through, that every song was great. That was the CD. I swear to God, there were some bands that I would have in for months because I just sometimes was more of a pain in the butt to take it out, find a new one, and you know, skip through. But if you liked every song on it, you kind of just kept rolling with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. You made those CD lists. It's, you know, just like take this song from this one and burn a CD. And I remember, you know, trying to date this girl, and my idea was I'm going to make a song list, but I'm going to be clever, and I'm going to put like a lot of love songs on there. You know what I'm saying? And let her listen to it and see if she can figure out that I really like her. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm thinking I'm real original. Of course, every other Tom, Dick, and Harry did the same thing, but it's just like, you know, all these songs in there, and she's like, "Oh yeah, that's right." Didn't have a clue. Had no clue what, you know. I was just like, well, I enjoy the CD.
Well, what's funny was that just basically went from, you know, back in the day, I remember getting the blank tapes and sitting in front of, you know, and listening to the radio and having to be quick and start recording it at the beginning of the radio. And then now you're burning CDs and you're creating certain things. You know, of course, then it became the age of Napster, and you're downloading all the music to put on these CDs, and oh man, it became a whole different situation. But yeah, I mean, it went from mixtapes to mixed CDs.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah, I remember those mixtapes. I still, when I go home to see my parents, I'll open up a couple of drawers and I'll find mixtapes, like all these old mixtapes. And I asked my parents, why don't you throw some of this stuff? It's your stuff. They won't let me throw. So one time for my birthday, they boxed up all this junk and gave it to me. I thought it was going to be a cool gift. I open it up. It's a bunch of old mixtapes and CDs. Like, what am I going to use? I don't even have any way to play a tape now. Like,
Yeah,
well, it's your stuff.
where do you find a tape player anymore?
I don't know. It's the same thing for VHS. They give me the old VHS. I don't have a VHS player. I have no idea how much.
I don't think you can find VHS players anymore.
They're hard to come by.
I imagine. That's like, was it old beta disc? Remember them?
Yeah. People thought that, you know, the thing is funny is now you look back and you're like, who would buy a beta? People thought beta was going to be the thing. It was a smaller tape, and some people actually bought those beta machines, and boy, they found out. Beta
was the thing. That was back like even in the 8-track time.
Oh yeah.
Power Wheels. I remember these in the early 90s. I unfortunately we never had, you know, that much that type of money type thing. But I remember seeing kids in the neighborhood that had Hot Wheels or Power Wheels, and you're like, oh damn, that thing's awesome.
It's just kind of like now, like you see someone driving around a really cool car, you know, like that person's rich. You see a kid in one of these as opposed to somebody else. I'm in my little red wagon and I'm having my brother push me around. I'm the poor kid, and there's another kid wheeling around his Jeep just thinking he's cool.
What's funny is that the whole idea of these things still haven't changed. My kids are I've got a garage with like 3 of them in there, and you know they play with it for a while, and then they sit in my garage and build up space. It's annoying.
Mm-hmm. I hear you.
Wayne's wife says it works at Walmart, and they still fly off the shelves. Yeah, I don't. I guess it's the same. The concept of the way the kids see them has not changed from the way we see them.
Sure, absolutely. Well, it's just like kid. I mean, you're a big kid. Like, you know, when you grow up and get money, it's sort of interesting. When I look back at some of these things, I didn't have a lot of toys when I was a child, and to be honest with you, my dad tells me even now, you're buying these stuff because we didn't buy any toys for you. You're buying the toys. I said, yeah, that's basically it. I didn't have some of these toys, so I have money now. I'm gonna buy my toys.
I'm buying my collection.
I'm gonna enjoy it.
And not toys, they're action figures.
That's right. That's another thing. I got really irritated at my boss. I was down in this room, and we were doing a work call. Right. So I'm on my teleconference doing a work call, and the superintendent of the school district, he's on there, and he likes to tease me about my Funkos, and he keeps calling them baby dolls. I'm like, look, man, that's not cool. These are collectible. Some of them are worth more than your life. You know, just back up. But he loves to give me a hard time.
I had a moment today, and I thought it was, and I didn't correct the lady because I just said, you know what, I'm just not going to correct. I was in Walgreens this morning, and anytime I go to Walgreens, I always go back to the toy section and see what kind of Funkos they have. And so I found one I liked, and I'm going to the register, and there's this older lady. She had a cart full of stuff, And she goes, "Oh, that's all you got?" It's like, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh, you can go ahead of me, no problem. Especially since you're buying a toy for a little one." I'm like,
Whoops.
"Yeah, let's go with that one. Let's go with." I was like, I didn't want to correct her. I'm like, I'm just gonna run with that and just leave it that.
If somebody lets you in front, you pretty much need to go with whatever. You know what I mean? So.
But yeah, so Hot Wheels, I don't think that's changed through the years. I think that's still a big one. Game Boy,
right? I remember those. I definitely remember those,
especially the color ones. I mean, when Game Boy went color, that changed the everything. I remember, what's funny is I had an original Game Boy, and I got it from my aunt when I was a kid, and I thought it was the coolest thing. I really only had it for about a month. I got it. I got in trouble for something, which wasn't uncommon for me. I got in trouble for a lot of things, but that was a big thing. So my mom took my Game Boy away, and then she lost it. Never had it back. Now, to this day, we don't know what happened to the damn thing. I don't know. We suspect that one of my sister's friends stole it, but we could never prove it. And it was just like, well, that is. We didn't have the money to go replace one of those because those were expensive back then.
Oh yeah, I mean, sort of interesting that some of the technology toys are about as expensive then as they are now, except it's worth, money's worth more, then than it was now. So yeah, I mean, a new game system costs about the same as it does now, except it was, but people still have money to make it happen. So and I never had a colored Game Boy. I had the regular Game Boy, and it was an older one. I think my dad got it used from someone, and I had to put like something in the back to hold the game in place, like it would slide out. Like I'd have the game, and I would like this, and the game shot out, and it's game over. So my dad was like, "Well, just get a piece of cardboard." I was like, that'll look real nice. So I got a piece of cardboard shoved in there, and then I told my dad, I was like, "I want to get a new one, and I want to get a colored one." And then he was like, "Oh, I'll take care of it." And he spray painted it. He spray painted my thing. I don't know what color it was. That's yellow or green or some obnoxious color. And of course, like I was like, he didn't even tape off the screen right. There was like paint spill over all on the edges of the screen. I'm like, I can't be seen. So I still played it in my room, but I certainly wouldn't go anywhere with it. So
that's funny. Yes, when I have seen that they have brought the original Game Boy, or like even the Game Boy Color back. It's kind of the same thing of the old retro ones. It's already got games lifted on it, stuff like that. But it still makes me sad a little bit because I got my daughter one of those the newer ones, but it's just the handheld, the wider, and you can download. I downloaded onto their old Nintendo and Super NES games, and again it was the same thing as before. I go through there, and a bunch of games from back in the day. I'm like, oh man, this is cool. I remember this game. And I'm like, I play. I'm like, oh my god,
that was cool to remember.
I want to leave those memories back in the 90s when I had them. But I do remember when Game Boy went color. That was that was a whole big thing. And then, of course, you had the PlayStations that came out. That's the only thing about the back end of this list. You see a lot of video games. But what's funny is I think out of all these things, I know we may skip through these ones a little bit more. As a kid, the biggest thing I remember is just original NES. That was everybody had to have those. Especially the one with the Duck Hunt, gun in there and stuff like that. I mean, that was the thing everybody had to have back in the day, and everybody looked for it. And that was, of course, well before the PlayStation or N64 or anything like that. But that was probably, if you're talking video games, that was probably my earliest version of people going and looking for that.
I had an original an Atari. Of course, I'm older than you are, but I had an Atari 2600 with the oak thing around it, and I remember playing that a lot as a child. I played like Pitfall and River Raid, and if you really want to get disappointed by how bad games were, go play an Atari game. I mean, I remember a game Surround. It literally was a block, and you had to surround the other blocks with this one block. So
play E.T. on Atari, and you have serious disappointment. I mean, that was like, everybody had to play E.T. because E.T. was big, and then you played, and you're like, this is the dumbest game ever.
I think they actually, on this thing I was telling you about, this show on Netflix, they were like rating worst games ever, and I think E.T. was actually called the worst game ever.
It was the most disappointing game, and it's just you always fell into that stupid pit, and it was never ending. It's like I'm just done. You wanted to throw that game, but man, I remember Pitfall was awesome. Defenders was awesome. I mean, we were set. I mean, Pong was the shit back then.
That's all you had.
Yeah,
It was either that or nothing. I used to go spend a lot of time after that between like Atari and Nintendo going to arcades. I remember a lot of time spending in the arcades whenever there was an arcade nearby. I would spend basically all my quarters would go to the arcade. We'd go play a bunch of games. So.
Yeah, the home console definitely killed the arcade. But man, you go into the arcade, there's nothing like going to the arcade. You know, it had that atmosphere, had everyone putting their quarters down, waiting to have next, stuff like that. And man, I love the arcade atmosphere. I miss it. Kids nowadays will never understand.
I'm convinced I probably took a year off my life with all the germs I got in there because everyone was sneezing and touching the same things over and over again. But it was very cool. I mean, it was a very cool, every time like it was my birthday and I wanted to do something for my birthday, it'd be like we'd go to an arcade or something like that. So that was the
stuff. And Wayne's wife, I do agree that the greatest part about old NES was, and you had that duck hunt, was shooting that stupid dog. Everyone wanted to shoot that damn dog. Stupid thing.
I was always convinced. I don't know if the things weren't very good quality or I was a terrible shot. I would shoot and shoot and shoot. My brother would play and he would kill all the ducks. And then it was my turn. I know I'm pointing right at I would literally touch the screen. I'm like, it's not shooting. What the heck is going on?
You had to be at the right angle of the TV because, of course, back then it was all glass front TVs.
It was like one of those domed front ones. It was like, you're
That's what I eventually figured out, because if you were standing out, you had to basically be dead on in order to make that thing work. Because if you were slightly off, because it worked off of reflectiveness from the glass, and you're like, man, this thing, I would do the same thing. I was like, God damn it, I know I killed that stupid bird. The proper popper, what's happening? Mama J, what's going on? Appreciate you guys. Mama J used to manage an arcade for 30
that's a cool
years.
job.
Like I said, there's nothing like an arcade back in the day. Those were the places to be. But
they used to make mega bucks. I mean, they would be raking all kinds of dough.
But I agree with you. You think about it, especially in today's world where we're living in the pandemic, and you think germs. Oh my God, that was now I think about it. Now it kind of makes your skin crawl a little bit. Of how many germs you were probably spreading around.
When you used to go to Chuck E. Cheese and jump in the ball pit, every time you jump in there, one of the kids had vomited in the bottom of the ball pit. It was gross, and people were sneezing. Like I said, it was a nasty place, but it was cool. If you're a kid, you're not thinking about stuff.
No, not at all.
Cool.
Because you're just spreading it around yourself, anyways. Pokemon. This is too late for me. This is far too late. I remember doing Magic the Gathering towards my end. That's probably the extent of card games that I did. We were big on Magic the Gathering. That was cool. We used to have friends come over and play the game all the time. Pokemon came out after that, and like I said, I was starting into junior high and high school, and I'd never got into the whole Pokemon craze. And then I think we talked about this in Wayne Tech earlier, that I remember Pokemon, it was probably late 90s or early 2000s. It was huge. It got big. The video games came out, and then there was like a lull where you just heard like Pokemon just kind of go away for a while. And then the movie came out, cool. The app came out, which blew up even more. But recently, and I'm saying just recently, I don't know if you've noticed this, but I mean, I'm talking the past months. Mm-hmm. Pokemon cards have blown up.
Mm-hmm.
I don't get it. I don't know it. I don't understand Pokemon cards, but there's YouTube channels completely dedicated to these things. It's just like Pops. I mean, there's huge, big money on some of these things. I mean, huge, big money. But I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know who's.
I don't either. But like some of those original cards, supposedly like the Charizard, I guess is the main card that everyone always hunts for in these things. I mean, they're worth tens of thousands of dollars for a perfect Charizard. And there's one channel that I watch. I don't know why I watch, because I really don't like Pokemon. I don't like Pokemon Pops. I like nothing. But I'll occasionally watch this because I want to see the guy pull something really amazing. And he'll open like a box that's a $30,000 unopened box of cards. and pull out, and he'll pull like a $50,000 card out of there. It is amazing. I don't know why they're so valuable all of a sudden, but I mean, it's great for people if they got it.
They're definitely up and down. I know that they're big nowadays, but like I said, this was past mine. Of course, we're gonna skip through some of these, but Super Nintendo. I remember it was between Super Nintendo. Back then you were either a Super Nintendo or you were a Sega Genesis person, and I remember Super Nintendo. I liked Super Nintendo, but I think because my friends had a Sega Genesis, and we'd be up hours and hours playing Sega Genesis, and that's where I gravitated towards. And you remember back then, you look at Sega Genesis, like, oh man, this company is never going anywhere. This company is going to beat out Nintendo, blah blah blah. Yeah, what do we know?
Well, they sort of marketed Sega Genesis to like teenagers, and it was sort of like more of an adult kind of thing, whereas Nintendo at the time was more, younger kids and stuff like that. So I think that's like when I had my Sega Genesis, it was high school, and then into college, I brought my Sega Genesis with me to college, and we would play against some of the other people and stuff like that. So, but I never had I had a Nintendo, but I went and got a Sega Genesis after that.
Yeah, I was the same way. Sega Genesis all the way, and then of course I think they made the single dumbest move in progression, and they came out with the Sega CD, and it was just that was I think the nail that did them in for them. But yeah, was it the proper popper said? I collect for the clout, but I'm not looking for them on purpose. I'm thinking that's on the Pokemon stuff.
Pokemon,
but yeah. Can't ever beat the original NES. I agree with you. Probably the Mario games on both the original NES and Super NES. I'll play those on my daughter's games, stuff like that. Because I mean, you can't down classic Mario. Although the greatest thing was Super Mario 2 was so much different than anything that had ever come out. But it was widely different because it was so much different, and it was awesome. But yeah, I remember that I was much more of a Sega Genesis type. Beanie Babies. I know we've talked about this. This was the Funko Pop before there was Funko Pop. I was never into Beanie Babies, but these things were everywhere, and they were the same thing. Certain ones, man, they went for big goddamn money.
They definitely did. They definitely. I didn't understand it. I mean, I understood that it was like, like a small stuffed animal full of beans and stuff like that. But it's not like a pop, because people are like, oh, it's like a Beanie Baby. I mean, I would hear it's not, because it's not representing anything that I remember. The reason I like Funkos are because it represents, like, seeing a Marty McFly reminds me of when I used to like, when I would originally watch Back to the Future and things like that. Reminds me brings a memory. These things that never brought me any of that. It was just, that's cool and everything, but I didn't really see it. I didn't get it.
Yeah,
it lasted for a few years, and that was that. So.
I think that's my thing. I never got it. It's a bunch of animals. I'm like, okay, cool. I agree with Wayne's wife on this one. That only hoarders collected.
They're still stuck with them too. That's the sad
thing. you got a hoarding problem in your garage there, or in your basement. But then again, the rest of us do anyways. But I think if you're going to compare these to Funko Pops, if anything, I agree with you. Funko Pops, at least you can look at something and you remember your childhood, remember something back then. Secondly, Funko Pops are a lot easier to store and display and keep organized than these stupid things.
That's for sure. I mean, I remember some certain people. I think my cousin used to collect a lot of them, and she couldn't. I was like, "Where do you sleep?" Her entire bed was covered with Beanie Babies. Like, well, I just take them off. And it's like a whole job the night, before you get to bed. And you'd get out of bed and you put them all back on there. I was like, I don't get it.
Yeah, I never understood that part. When it says, have you ever seen the show? Every episode of Hoarders has Beanie Babies. Yeah, I don't doubt it. I have seen Hoarders, and yeah, you are 100% right. But yeah, I never understood the appeal of them, but they were big. People were selling some of these things for big money. Legos. Were you a Lego kid?
I don't know if there wasn't a person on the planet that wasn't a Lego kid.
I would agree.
Because Lego's been around forever and been popular forever. So.
But see, we didn't have. I think that even some of the sets started becoming popular, in the later part. But as far as that, maybe we didn't have. I know we didn't have a lot growing up. We didn't have the full sets and everything. We just got buckets of Lego pieces, and we didn't have the sets and the the little drawings to tell you how to put things together. It was, here's a bucket of Legos, figure out and make something.
Right, because I just get like a bucket of the different things, and of course I was building something, and I thought it was really good. Always at the end, I was missing. I need a little piece to make this work, and you never have, because there's no instructions. You were just sort of coming from memory, so I never really. And then of course the colors weren't right. It was just a disaster. But my dad hated my Legos. Because it killed him. I would leave him out everywhere, and he'd be walking around his bare feet and fall down the stairs or whatever, what he's stepping on, because it's just like, a punishment to stand on Legos.
That pain is so horrible. I get it nowadays. My kids have Legos, and they'll do the same thing. They leave them up here in the loft or something like that, and it's on carpet. And I step, dude, that pain sucks. Stepping on Legos is freaking horrible. I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's bad. Wayne's wife said Wayne still plays with Legos. I don't.
Well, it is cool that they have sets now, just like you were saying, that we didn't really have that. And so I had to use my imagination, and eventually I just ran out of things to make. I would be making the same thing. So it's cool that you have specific pieces, but I'm terrible at following directions. So like, if I buy something at IKEA, this is the truth. I bought a cabinet. I was like, I'm going to put this cabinet together and for some of my Funkos, etc. I got about halfway through it and I started to cry, because I'm like, this is just horrible. I put it together. I never put something together right the first time. Never. It's always put together halfway, or it's upside down, and it's just like. And then I just give up. I'm just like, I give up. I'm not gonna. Throw it outside or throw it in the garbage. And my wife comes down, and I was just like, I want to pretend like elves showed up overnight and just let it be there, because I can't do it. I am just not handy.
Yeah, but like you said, I think there was a little bit more creativity. Not as, of course, we get the sets, but then what happens after you build the set? They all end up in the little packaging. So my kids still get the creativity. They still sit there and play with it, stuff like that. We don't have the sets anymore, but there are definitely some. Even out here at Disney, sometimes you see those sets of the full castle, stuff like that. I wouldn't mind doing it, but God, these things are expensive.
Oh yeah. And they're huge. I was watching some YouTube videos talking about the largest set was the Colosseum, apparently. Oh, yeah. It's gigantic, and I don't know, it's like $1,000 or something like that. Who's going to spend $1,000 on Legos?
It's like I think the Death Star too is up there. Disney started doing a whole bunch of different ones. Like they've got the front of Main Street now, but like the castle one was like $300. I'm not spending $300 on a set of Legos.
I saw a really funny. Every now and then I'll watch like Conan O'Brien on like YouTube and like clips. And there's a really funny Conan O'Brien. I don't know if you've ever seen it or not. It's with what's his name that plays Han Solo is on it. And Conan has this really nerdy guy on his crew that comes in. He likes to banter with people. So he comes in and he's like, I'd like you to autograph something for. And he had the Millennium Falcon, and he wanted what's his name just to autograph it. So he brings it out to him. Of course, it was all a big setup. He does the thing, and he's like, "Oh, like that," and then just smashes to a million pieces. And the guy looked like he was absolutely going to cry. Yeah. And of course, what's his name was just, he thought it was the funniest thing ever. So
I do remember. I know exactly what you're talking about. Titus says, Mr. Techbot, give Bearded some delicious jelly beans. No, he saw the episode. I've still got the box sitting here, and there's not a chance I will ever in my lifetime ever eat one of these again. That was I probably out of all the shows we've done with Wayne and I, that is probably the single worst decision we ever made. And I know Wayne can agree with me on that. We will do the hot stuff all day long. I don't care how stupid I look in doing those hot challenges. That was horrible.
It's for people who haven't tried it before, they taste amazingly like what they say. Like vomit really does remind me of the times when I've thrown up. And I told them, these scientists must be geniuses. They should be working on other things, because I don't know how they do it. I really don't. Some
I
of them
don't-
smell too, like you bite into a stink bug one, and literally there's a smell that comes from. Horrible.
She says he's eating them now. The only one that still sticks with me is that stupid spoiled milk. Even every time I look at it, I can remember it in my head. It is the worst thing I've ever experienced. And here's what bothers me about it: the fact that it is so spot on that it's like, what? There's something wrong with you guys. That it's like, how are you guys getting that so spot on? That are you guys actually trying real spoiled milk just to figure out? I don't get it. I'm glad I don't work in that field, but I'm just like,
they had a. I don't know if you've ever seen the show Mike Rowe does, and it's like how things are made, or gross jobs or something like that. You know what I'm talking about?
oh yeah, dirty job.
Dirty Jobs. And he went to that place that did that. It was Jelly Belly, and did that. And they made he was like, I want to make one that's like a mixture of vomit and all these things together. And they showed him how he made it. It was actually very cool. And he thought he was going to throw it. When he smelled it, he thought he was going to throw it.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, when I did that Jelly Belly challenge, the 500 subscriber thing, and I had all these jelly beans in there, I would have probably been okay, but I put some of those nasty ones in there. And you're putting them in there, and I'm shoveling jelly beans into my mouth. All of a sudden, I ran out of a drink. My wife went to get me a drink, and I shoved some in my mouth, and I got, I don't know, a vomit-flavored one. And it literally just caused everything to come up. It was really gross. But yeah, if you haven't tried them, they're really gross. I just got some from Mama J. They're the spicy ones. Those are horrible. Oh, yeah. I hate those.
I think this has completely even screwed me from jelly beans in general. Yeah, now you're not going to look at them the same anymore. You're going to be worried. But yeah, that was horrible. That was the single worst. And the problem is, actually, I can't blame that one on Wayne, because I think he came up with a game to do where we picked a word and we had to keep eating on it. But we had Poppin' Duos on there, and he wanted to do it with like I think the Death Nut or something like that. And I was like, no. I think we can get Vince into doing it, but Vince won't do hot. I was like, maybe we can get him to do gross. I didn't think they were as bad as they are.
They're really gross.
And yeah, once we got into this, we're like, dude, no, this is horrible. The
thing that's interesting is the Birdie Bots. I don't know if you've tried any of those before. I mean, to be honest with you, they're a little worse. Like the vomit one, that one's worse than the other vomit one. So, but yeah, it's so gross. I mean,
that's a hell of a weight loss plan. Only gross jelly beans. Yeah, good luck with that one.
Well, the thing that gets me is when I was eating all those jelly beans, you don't realize how much sugar is in a jelly bean until you try to eat. I ate like 133 of them. Seriously, my head was killing me. I was, it probably put me in a little bit of a diabetic kind of situation, because I was shaking. I'm not used to eating that much sugar.
I think that was my problem, because I had the big box. They all had the little box, and I remember even at the end, I think I grabbed a big handful and ate like a handful at a time. And I think that did me over. I was like, dude, I just kind of got through the rest of the stream. And then when we were done the stream, I just kind of like went off on the side. I was like, I can't do it. This is horrible. Pump my stomach. Get this out of me.
It'll find its way out of you. That's for sure.
All right. We only got a couple items. I think they're actually pretty basic items. Of course, you got Pokemon, Game Boy. Again, I never got into it. That was well past my time. And N64. But I think N64 was late 90s, if I remember. That was my high school years. And then, for me in the 90s, my friends, it was all about GoldenEye and Mario Kart. We rocked those two games out like there was no tomorrow. And we played those things for hours. Yeah,
I didn't have a Nintendo 64. I think I went from Sega Genesis, and I didn't have something for a while until I got an Xbox. And then that was the thing I played a lot more of. I played Halo and stuff like that. That was, I think, early 2000s or whatever. So
see, I was working for a video game store when Xbox came out. That was the same time GameCube came out. And I remember when Xbox came out, I was like, oh, I don't know about this. Microsoft finally getting into video games. They already do enough. Why do I want to get into that? And then working in the store, we had these big displays, and we had Halo. And there was the night it released, I was assistant manager, and my manager was there, and We let everyone else go because we had to be open till a certain time, but there was nobody else coming in. We sat there at the interactive console and played football. And the security guard said he could hear us from down at the other end of the mall, yelling at each other on playing this game. And it was so much fun. And of course, then I discovered Halo, and I was like, "This is the greatest game ever." And here's another thing: if we want to talk about early early struggles, video games, Halo was great. It's still old, newer game, but then you want to get your friends involved in it. Right. And you're like, ooh, wait, now we got a new thing. We can link 4 Xboxes up together if you have the hub. Right. So I got the hub, and we were literally, my friends and I'd make sure that I had 3 other friends that brought over Xboxes, and I used to have 2 TVs in the house. We bring them into the front. And I used to have my friends would bring over, and we're not talking about flat screen TVs. We're talking about the bigger TVs that we had. Whatever we had, we would literally set up 4 TVs, and we would sit there and do full Halo parties and stuff like that. And then, of course, Xbox Live came out and completely disintegrated my hub at that point. But that was the thing. And then, of course, they're all close together. So then, of course, your ultimate rule is you don't look at other people's screens. But of course,
right. We try to get some people not cheating. Good luck with that. Yeah. I used to play. I played Xbox Live with my cousin and my brother when I was in, early on in the early 2000s. We had a lot of fun, and we would play against each other, and that was a lot of fun. And then somebody had a brilliant idea. Let's go on and play against some random people, some other people, and pull it up. And there were some, 8-year-olds. I don't know how old these kids were. Oh. And here I am, my early 20s or late, and they obliterate. I mean, it was one of those things where as soon as you come back to life, you're sniped. It's just like, is this fun? I mean, this is not fun. I hated it. Of course, the kids learned a lot of good language because I cursed at them constantly. But it was just like, look, kids, you know what I'm saying? Isn't it past your bedtime or something like that? And and then of course they're laughing in their little kid voice. It's just, I was like, let's just go back to playing against each other. This is
the early Xbox years was always about you run into these stupid little 8-year-olds, and of course because they're online, they feel that this is their finally time to use every cuss word they ever heard their parents ever say, and you're like, dude, get the hell out of here, blah blah. And then eventually, when Xbox came up with a thing where you could just only chat with your friends and that you could ignore all of them, it was a whole new game. But I remember getting in so many arguments and with these little 8-year-olds, and then you think, why am I getting in an argument with an 8-year-old?
Exactly. It was kind of interesting. One time, my wife's son used to really be into World of Warcraft, and I think he played on his computer. He didn't play on like a game system. And I remember we were sitting down eating dinner, and he would never leave his room. He was playing constantly on that game, and so he comes out and he sits down looking all sad. And I was like, what's wrong with you? I got kicked off. He got actually kicked off for 48 hours of the game. I said, you must have really cursed. Because, you can hear people cursing all the time on the thing and saying all kinds of things. He must have really said something horrible to get kicked off. But it was the worst 48 hours of his life, I can tell you that. Because he just did not, he could not, he was like sitting on a computer waiting for the little thing to tick down, the timer to tick down. Like, you get a life, all right? You try to do something.
He couldn't cope with it.
Yeah, he couldn't. It absolutely. There's nothing to do.
Oh, I know. But I think that's why like movies like Ready Player One hit such a note with me, because not only does it feed that video game thrive that we all have in us to a certain point and we remember as kids, but it also brought up all that great 80s pop culture like the DeLorean and the Shining and all this other stuff, these great 80s pop culture. I mean, that movie was just full of, and that's why, when I first saw that movie, I was like, holy crap, this thing is awesome. It has everything in it that, who didn't ever think that they would honestly want to completely immerse themselves into a video game like that? Absolutely. We all did. I mean, and do I think technology could eventually get to that point? Sure. Oh, yeah.
I definitely can see that, especially like the other parts, like, doing education online. Look what's happening now. It's not virtual reality, but you could easily see migrating to doing more of that. and all the other stuff that's going on and doing those things online.
I mean,
Absolutely, I definitely could see it.
Could you see people using like the Oculus? The Oculus is that big, VR. Could you see even classrooms? Kids, hey, you gotta go to class. You got to put your Oculus on, and you're gonna have an actual virtual classroom. I mean, it's astonishing what could actually be a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, they do a lot of virtual reality things for training now. I mean, some of the company that I work for has some different things where we do virtual reality welding. They do a lot of virtual reality training sessions for things like that. And people use it for, instead of cutting up real frogs, they do use virtual reality for a lot of those things. So just sort of filling in the gaps of where there isn't now. I definitely can see that being the future for sure.
Well, that's like even I know Disney out here. The Imagineers have this one building. I've been in there once. It's basically just a fully white room, top to bottom. It's all curved edges, everything around the room, and they can basically ride any ride that they're trying to create on there. They have, there's one like you could kind of do a makeshift a car. And you kind of sit in there, but you can almost virtually sit in there and check every ride before you finish designing it to see if it's going to work. And it's crazy what they're doing with technology with this stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, you think about in the olden days when they're trying to build a roller coaster, they try to do this and try to do that, and it just doesn't work. And all the money you're out and all the time. Whereas you could do these things virtually and try to work out the kinks, and they can get a lot of things done quicker, things done cheaper, etc. When they didn't used to. So yeah, absolutely. I really think it's definitely the future. I definitely do think it's the future.
Exactly.
And it was a cool movie. I don't know if you ever. I'm not much of a book reader, but I've gotten into audiobooks. It was a very good audiobook.
Yeah, I did. There is some stuff in the book that I really wish it would have been played out in the movie. But I think Spielberg did a fantastic job.
Oh yeah,
nonetheless. I know Ready Player 2 just came out last month. Haven't checked it out yet, but I hope they adapt it into a movie. I don't care what the story is, just bring us back. I mean, I love the storyline. The first one was just awesome, so I can't wait. But yeah, like I said, I just wanted to bring. I started thinking about with Christmas coming up soon. Stuff like that. What do I remember as childhood? These aren't definitely aren't all of them. I know we talked about a lot of items that weren't even on this list, but everybody's going to have their great childhood memories of something, and some of these items were things on mine, and so it's always kind of good to step back, reminisce, remember where we were, and to see where we are now.
Yeah, absolutely, and like I said, it's cool that a lot of these things are coming up back as retro toys or versions, like even Pops. That you're seeing retro toy versions of games and things like that. And I was just walking through the living room and I noticed that my wife had bought a bunch of board games that I can remember from my childhood, like Battleship and those type of things that people still want to play those things. Sort of interesting that you'd think people, the technology's gotten to a point where it's like, would people be interested in those? People do still enjoy them. So I think that's really cool. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun. I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, it made me feel very old. I feel like that a lot now, but I mean, it did make me feel a little extra old. So.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. I know it was last minute, and then of course I screwed the pooch yet again, and accidentally fell asleep. I think through this week I'm gonna have to rethink. Like I said, the next couple weeks shouldn't be too bad because of course I will have gotten full night's sleep before then. But definitely during normal weeks, I think it's hard because, like I said, I work third shift throughout the week, and this is my last day of my week. So there's sometimes a lot of culmination of getting there. But what's funny is I literally remember sitting there and I was thinking, oh man, I'm still doing pretty good. I'm checking around. It almost like that switch just flips, and I don't even know it. And
you're getting older, and like I said, falling asleep in a chair is a sign of that. So
I can pretty much fall asleep anywhere nowadays.
Well, like I said, I appreciate you having me on. I was more worried about you. I was fine. I'm just sitting around the house listening to some Christmas music anyway, so it was no big deal. But
yeah,
concerned that you plumped over and that was it. No more Techbot. You know what I mean?
Nope, I'm still around. We can keep doing it. But definitely, I appreciate you hanging in there with me. Always good to have you on, brother. I know we talk from time to time, especially on the lives and stuff like that. But I definitely always want to thank you for the support that you give. You got a fantastic channel over there. Guys, again, if you are watching this live or you're going to be watching this on the replay, definitely, if you have not checked out Bearded Barbarian, his Instagram and his channel link is in the description down below. Get over to him, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button for him, show him some love. Bearded Barbarian, fantastic channel. He's been opening up stuff, and one of these days, I swear he's going to put that axe through a pop.
I've already done it.
You do it?
Well, it didn't go through the pop. It went through the plastic covering, and it irritated me. And then I was like, oh, well, it's my fault. When I pulled it out, the pop box was already destroyed. Amazon had sent me a destroyed pop to begin with, but I was going to send it out, and I was like, yeah, it's fine. But I've already done that once. Got to be careful with those Amazon boxes. That paper tape they use is really not very good. So yeah, I've made that mistake once. I'm trying not to do it again. I hope the main thing is I'm worried about cutting my finger off. That's really what I'm concerned.
That thing looks sharp, so it definitely, you got to be careful there with that.
It's not that sharp. That's the thing. I mean, you think actually sharper is better because press harder, and that's when you have an accident. If you have a sharp thing, usually you're fine. So,
did you order that new Spastic box?
Which one was that?
Are you going to go after to try to get one of those Haunted Mansion pops?
When is it coming out?
It's out now. I already ordered mine.
Oh no! I'll have to take a look at it. Yeah,
$75 for guaranteed of 60 to 600.
Oh wow! Yeah, because I just opened a Spastic one. It was Everybody Gets a Freddy. It was one of my videos I posted yesterday, I think it was. And then I also tried one of those spicy beans too, which made fire shoot out of my mouth.
Oh, so, I imagine.
But yeah, I really do like Spastic. I haven't gotten as much good luck from Spastic as Smile World. I really do prefer Smile World.
See, every time I get around to Smile World, all their boxes are always sold out. I miss them out on a lot of times and stuff like that. And I'm only giving Spastic another chance because I thought my last box was so bad. I'm giving it another chance because you had recommended it. So I'm thinking, don't go after these little box ones because that's just their inventory they're trying to get rid of. Go after these higher dollar ones.
Right. I've never had awesome luck, but I've never had really bad luck. So it's sort of like in the middle there, because there's some companies it's like you do really awesome or you are devastated. And so I really don't like those too much. Smy's the same way. Smy, I've actually had really awesome luck. I've had 2 top pulls out of some Smy boxes, but just like you said, they sell out so quickly. Luckily, every time I try to get a Smy, I seem to be able to get it. I can't get a Pop King Paul to save my life, but
his things sell out
instantly. Like no, yeah, it's crazy. But he really does have some good. I noticed he hasn't put out a lot yet lately. I don't know what's going on.
It could be the end of the year. It could be slowing down. Who knows? But yeah, you take it for it, isn't it? And I know I do some of the Instagram boxes too, but I've got my good buddy over there at Mikey Vintage that puts out some good boxes and stuff like that. But yeah, there's definitely a lot out there. A lot hopefully for the future coming up with some different stuff. But always fun. And I know you are like Wayne. I know you're a big mystery box. You enjoy mystery boxes just as much as I do. To me, you're
a bit of a gambler. I mean, some people like you're taking a gamble and you could lose. I mean, you legitimately lose. You don't want to lose, then don't buy a mystery box because I mean, there's plenty of times where I've gotten really crushed with a mystery box, especially early on with some of these companies that are real fly by nights. I mean, I paid $60 for a mystery box, and I literally pulled out one pop that was $6. So I mean, that's not really what you're looking for. So,
but you got to look at the overall. I mean, for this one, you could either you pay $75 and maybe get just under your value, or you can pay $75 and pull a $600 pop.
Sure, that's right. That's exactly.
So that's the risk you take.
Yeah, and some of the top pops that I have, I would never buy them myself. I mean, I pulled my Ace Ventura pop, which is like worth $400 out of I think it was a $80 box, maybe $100 box. I would never pay $400 for a pop. It's just, I mean, I'd love to. There's a certain pop I desperately want. I want to get that Allen with Baby Carlos. That's the one I want. The one, and I'm still trying to get it.
I saw that on our friend's desk one time. Yeah, where he was out of the box. He had no idea what he had, and I saw it. And I was like, you realize what you have there? He says, no, my wife just got it for me. We thought it looked funny. I'm like, dude, that's an expensive pop.
It is.
He goes, really? So I showed him on the Funko app, and he's like, oh, wow. I didn't even know that it was that much. I'm like, yeah, that's an expensive pop right there.
Right. Yeah, they have it on Whatnot every now and then, but I'm afraid of a fake. I don't want a fake. That's mine.
Real quick, we'll take this one last question before we break away. It says, what are your best and worst pulls? In a mystery box, my best pull was on a Funko box. I pulled a Funko Freddy dressed as Genie. That was a huge pop. I don't have it anymore. I got an offer for it that I could not turn down, so I had to take it. Worst pull, Fortnite. I'll give it that. I hate Fortnite. I hate pulling Fortnite. It sucks. They suck. They have no value, and there's too goddamn many of them.
There are. You'd think after a while they'd have learned their lesson. It's not worth doing those. But yeah, I think my best one probably is Ace Ventura. I also got Rey Mysterio, which was a cool one, but I paid a decent amount for that Rey Mysterio box as opposed to the Ace one. So I've gotten some good ones. And then probably the worst one was, like I said, I pulled an anime one, and it was one of my early videos, and I had a complete temper tantrum. I took it outside. I took my axe with me, and I threw it at it repeatedly until it was smashed into many pieces. I still have the damaged pop over here in the corner to remind me to remain more calm. But yeah, that was not great.
Be one with the pop. It's okay.
Right.
It's okay. Anyways, guys, thank you guys very much for coming and joining us. We always appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that like button down there. Go check out the Bearded Barbarian. Leave me a comment, as well as, if you haven't done so already, hit that subscribe button. Other than that, have a very good night. Have a very Merry Christmas. Hope everybody enjoys themselves. Stay safe. I know this year's going to be way different than any other year, but definitely stay safe and spend time with family when you can. So other than that, have a wonderful night. And don't forget, do what you like, do what you love, and always unleash your inner nerd. Have a good night.